this is your girl Wakeji Kamore, and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. We are currently going through the book of 2 Samuel, which we are covering chapter by chapter. Today, I'll be reading from the 13th chapter, that's chapter 13, and I'll be reading from the NLT version. I'll read the whole chapter, and then afterwards, I will share my main takeouts. So please stay with me until the end, and don't forget to share this Bible summary with a friend or family. All right, let's do this. Are you ready? Okay, cool. Now, David's son, remember what has happened previously? David has had his scandal. He has gotten rebuked by by Prophet Nathan. He has confessed. God has forgiven him, but he's told him consequences are yours to bear, unfortunately. All right, so we are going to start seeing the consequences. All right, let's do this. Now, David's son, Absalom, had a beautiful sister named Tamar. And Amnon, her half-brother, fell desperately in love with her. Amnon became so obsessed with Tamar that he became ill. She was a virgin, and Amnon thought he could never have her. Oh yeah, this guy is actually love sick. I don't know whether it's love sick or lust sick. I think it is lust sick, as we are going to see in the next verses. But Amnon had a very crafty friend, his cousin Jonadab. He was the son of David's brother Shimei. One day, Jonadab said to Amnon, "What's the trouble? Why should the son of a king look so dejected morning after morning?" So Amnon told him, "I'm in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister." Well, Jonadab said, "I'll tell you what to do. Go back to bed and pretend you are ill. When your father comes to see you, ask him to let Tamar come and prepare some food for you. Tell him you will feel better if she prepares it as you watch and feeds you with her own hands." So Amnon, actually his name is Amnon, not Ammon. Amnon lay down and pretended to be sick, and when the king came to see him, Amnon asked him, "Please let my sister Tamar come and cook my favorite dish as I watch her. Then I can eat it from her own hands." So David agreed and sent Tamar to Amnon's house to prepare some food for him. First, I'm thinking, this guy, why is he behaving like such a child? And why is the father letting his son behave like such a child? Na sasa ni vitu gani hizo ati apikiwe hapo akiona na alishwe kutoka kwa mkono ya mtu? Like, that is so childish, man. Childish. And why is David agreeing to these things? Anyway, when Tamar arrived at Amnon's house, she went to the place where he was lying down, and he could watch her mix some dough. Then she baked his favorite dish, for him. But she set the serving tray before him. He refused to eat. "Everyone get out of here," Amnon told his servants, so they all left. Then he said to Tamar, "Now bring the food into my bedroom and feed it to me here." Jamani. So Tamar took his favorite dish to him. But as she was feeding him, he grabbed her and demanded, "Come to bed with me, my darling sister." My darling sister. Okay. "No, my brother," she cried. "Don't be foolish. Don't do this to me. Such wicked things aren't done in Israel. Where could I go in my shame and you would be called out? Where could I go in my shame and you would be called one of the greatest fools in Israel? Please, just speak to the king about it, and he will let you marry me." But Amnon wouldn't listen to her, and since he was stronger than she was, he raped her. Then suddenly Amnon's love turned into hate, and he hated her even more than he had loved her. "Get out of here," he snarled at her. You see, that's why I was saying it's no longer love. It wasn't love, it was just lust. Now it has become hate. And then Tamar said, No, Tamar cried. "Sending me away now is worse than what you have already done to me." But Amnon wouldn't listen to her. He shouted for her servants and demanded, "Throw this woman out and lock the door behind her." So the servants put her out and locked the door behind her. She was wearing a long, beautiful robe, as was the custom in those days for the king's virgin daughters. But now Tamar tore her robe and put ashes on her head. And then with her face in her hands, she went away crying. Her brother Absalom saw her and asked, "Is it true that Amnon has been with you?" "Well, my sister, keep quiet for now. Since he's your brother, don't you worry about it." So Tamar lived as a desolate woman in her brother's Absalom's house. When the king David heard what had happened, he was very angry. And though Absalom never spoke to Amnon about this, he hated Amnon deeply because of what he had done to his sister. Right. 2 years later, when Absalom's sheep were being sheared at Baal Hazor near Ephraim, Absalom invited all the king's sons to come to a feast. He went to the king and said, "My sheep shearers are now at work. Would the king and his servants please come and celebrate the occasion with me?" The king replied, "No, my son. If we all came, we would be too much of a burden on you." Absalom pressed him, but the king would not come, though he gave Absalom his blessings. "Well then," Absalom said, "if you can't come, how about sending my brother Amnon with us?" "Why Amnon?" the king asked. But Absalom kept on pressing the king until he finally agreed to let all his sons attend, including Amnon. So Absalom prepared a feast fit for a king. Absalom told his men, "Wait until Amnon gets drunk. Then at my signal, kill him. Do not be afraid. I'm the one who has given the command. Take courage and do it." So at Absalom's signal, they murdered Amnon. And the other sons of the king jumped out on their mules and fled. As they were on their way back to Jerusalem, this report reached David: "Absalom has killed all the king's sons. Not one is left alive." The king got up and tore his robe and threw himself on the ground. His advisors also tore their clothes in horror and in sorrow. But just then, Jonadab, the son of David's, the son of David's brother Shimei, arrived and said, "No, don't believe that all the king's sons have been killed. It was only Amnon. Absalom had been plotting this ever since Amnon raped his sister Tamar. No, my lord, the king, your sons aren't all dead. It was only Amnon." Meanwhile, Absalom escaped. Then the watchman of Jerusalem wall saw a great crowd coming down the hill on the road from the west. He ran to tell the king, "I see a crowd of people coming from the Horonaim road along the side of the hill." "Look," Jonadab told the king, "there they are now. The king's sons are coming, just as I said." They soon arrived, weeping and sobbing, and the king and all his servants wept bitterly with them. And David mourned many days for his son Amnon. Absalom fled to his grandfather Talmai, son of Ammihud, the king of Geshur. He stayed there in Geshur for 3 years, and King David, now reconciled to Amnon's death, longed to be reunited with his son Absalom. All right. So in this chapter, at the beginning of this book, I said that it's going to be about David's triumphs, David's temptations, and David's tragedies. We have just started David's tragedies. So in this chapter, we'll meet 3 of David's children. We have Absalom and Tamar, who are David's children by his wife Maacah. Then we have Amnon, who was also David's child. He was actually David's first son, who was born to his wife Ahinoam. Amnon's infatuation with his sister Tamar turned into sexual abuse. Absalom avenged his sister by killing Amnon. So there are a few things that I find a little bit off in this chapter. First, Amnon had a crafty friend who gave him wrong advice. So what kind of people do you allow to speak in your life? And what kind of advice are you receiving? Number 2, Amnon did not interrogate the feelings that he had for Tamar. Instead, he allowed them to take center stage in his life and to ruin him. If he had taken time to interrogate those feelings, he would have found out that they were just based on lust and not love. I personally like to interrogate my emotions. It could be anger, intimidation. Why am I feeling intimidated? Why am I feeling insecure? Why am I feeling proud? Why am I feeling jealousy? Why am I feeling even love? It is good to ask yourself, Why am I feeling this way? Is it a temporary thing? And what could be the root cause? And how can I refocus my mind to positive emotions? If Amnon had taken some time to just interrogate how he was feeling about Tamar, he would actually have realized it was just lust. All right, and then number 3. After David found out that Amnon had raped Tamar, he did not do nothing. Like, he did nothing apart from getting angry. We don't see him doing anything. No action was taken. Maybe if David had taken some action against his son Amnon, Absalom wouldn't have been that bitter and quietly planned to kill Amnon. Maybe his father's reprimand would have at least eased the anger that Absalom felt against Amnon. From this passage and other passages, David appears generally lenient towards his children. Honestly, he does. Sasa first kuna huyu mwenye anataka kulishwa na mtu kutoka kwa mikono za mtu, and David is just allowing it. Then there is someone who has raped somebody, and David is just not doing anything. He's just getting quiet. He's just getting angry and doing nothing. He's generally lenient towards his children. This may be because he felt guilty that in having so many wives and so many children and responsibilities of the state, he did not have time to be a true father to his children. So he dealt with this guilt by being soft and lenient with his children. But in the end, not disciplining your children will cause more havoc than good. And I've seen that happen even today. I've seen a lot of parents, try to kind of deal with the guilt of not being there for their children by buying them gifts, taking them on holidays, buying them whatever it is that they ask for. Mtoto akitisha chochote anapewa, right? Almost like immediately, and making them like these little kings in their homes, kings and queens in their homes, which is absolutely wrong. Instead of doing that, how about you just try and spend time with your children, try and discipline your children, because at the end, not disciplining your children will cause more havoc than good. Na sasa hizi havoc za David zimeanza tu. We will see them just becoming worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, one of his children has killed another of his children just because David did not really necessarily take time to be a good father, because he was spread out thin. He was spread out thin, and he was just, covering this guilt by being soft and lenient. Again, remember, not disciplining your children will cause more havoc than good. This is your girl Wakeji Kamore, and this has been Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. See you tomorrow.